Hi guys, so my Saturday night viewing this week was Shelby Oaks, a supernatural horror film directed by Chris Stuckman, who is mostly known for doing a YouTube channel, but apparently he has now graduated into doing his own movies. I don't watch Stuckman. In fact, I don't really watch channels that are like mine these days. I tend to listen to podcasts instead because I can have those on while I'm working and I'm not forced to look at a screen like you are with YouTube. But I am aware of Stuckman and who he is, and it would definitely be true to say that he's the reason why I'm reviewing this film, because if he hadn't been attached to it, then I probably just would have scrolled past Shelby Oaks on my streaming platforms the other night without giving this a moment's thought. But as it was, once I came to Shelby Oaks, I paused and thought, oh, that's that film that YouTuber did. This will be my film for tonight. I'm going to check this out. I actually came up with my own horror film once a while back, so who knows, maybe I could also one day make the jump from YouTube to doing my own movie. So my horror movie would be called Tent. Nice, sharp title, easy to remember. It'd be a slasher film in the woods, and there'd be a bunch of campers who were using tents. But this killer, his thing would be that he would only kill people if they come outside of their tent. There'd be a backstory to explain why he's like this, but eventually the characters would figure out why they can't leave their tents. So, but obviously they wouldn't be able to stay there forever or they'll starve. So there'd probably be some scenes where they're trying to move the tent, but still being in it. And the film would finish with the final girl in the woods, out of the tent at this point, and terrified of this killer. So she takes off her huge winter coat, puts it on top of her, crouches down, then sort of nails the coat into the ground around her, and she just hopes that the killer will accept this as a much smaller variation of tent, and then we would cut to credits, and that would be the end of the movie. That's what I came up with, for better or worse, and who knows, maybe one day I will film it, but as I can't do that yet, I guess today we will talk about Chris Stuckman's effort. So this film is about a group of paranormal investigators called the Paranormal Paranoids, and I guess they've got their own TV show or YouTube channel, I'm not sure which. But for their latest episode, they go to the abandoned town of Shelby Oaks, and they all disappear. And much later on, their camcorder footage is found, and it turns out that 3 of them were murdered by someone, and the 4th person in their group, a woman called Riley, she just disappeared. And I guess the investigation into all this went nowhere. Then 12 years pass, and a mysterious man turns up on the doorstep of the sister of Riley, a woman named Mia, and this guy just blows his own brains out right there on the doorstep without really saying much. So at this point, 12 years on, Mia decides to investigate what happened to her sister in Shelby Oaks, and we kind of go from there. So the first 10 or 15 minutes of this film is mockumentary found footage, and then we switch to a normal style for the rest of the film. So you could say that this pulls a little bit of a Rec 3 genesis, and actually there's lots of influences from other films contained within this one. Now, to be fair, when I watch any horror movie, I will spot 1 or 2 things where I think to myself, oh yeah, that's definitely influenced by such and such, and same with that. But this film is packed full of such influences to the point where I was making a massive long list in my head. So when you watch this, you will see bits of Blair Witch and Horror in the High Desert, The Ring, Barbarian, Chernobyl Diaries. It just goes on and on and on. It's like a mixtape of so many ideas from all sorts of films, but sadly there's not really one idea among all this that is just specific to this one film, which is a bit of a shame. But it's directed really well for a first-time director, and it looks more expensive than it is. I believe that this was made on a shoestring. Like, if you read online about this film, apparently there was very little money and all that stuff, and what money there was from a Kickstarter. But it looks just like a normal, decently budgeted, mid-tier horror film. Although I do think that another company came in at some point after the initial film festival screening and put some more money in. So there is that, but even so, this film is directed reasonably well. It's just a shame that there's not a good story there. Mia is played by Camille Sullivan, who apparently was in Rookie Blue back in the day, but I don't remember her, and I used to actually watch that. Amazingly, she was 48 when she filmed this, but she doesn't look it. I would have said that she was like mid-30s maybe, so credit to her for continuing to look far younger than she actually is. But sadly, her character is very bland here. In fact, I would go as far as to say that she's quite a boring character, and I don't approve of her decision to go and investigate Riley's disappearance 12 years after the fact. If this was real life, you'd have no chance of finding her at that point. You're just putting yourself in unnecessary danger. You're putting strain on your marriage for absolutely no reason as well. And I don't understand why Mia goes to Shelby Oaks at night time to investigate rather than going in the day. Why go at night when it's going to be super freaky and it's going to be far more dangerous? Just go in the daylight, you know? She goes to an abandoned prison. That's the first thing she does, at night time. Not a lot of people would want to do that in the dead of night. Although, in the film's defence, this sequence is probably the best content that this film has to offer. I really did feel the dread rising in me when Mia was wandering around that prison in the dark. That was some good stuff. Although, on the whole, I do kind of wonder whether this film should have focused on the paranormal paranoids, just told the story of those guys exploring this town and getting picked off one by one maybe, instead of getting all that out the way in the first 10 minutes and then fast forwarding 12 years and we have this much less interesting story about the sister doing a follow-on investigation. For me, Stuckman chose the wrong tale to tell here. Because this is a fairly recent movie, I don't want to tell you too much about how this story pans out in the second half, but I will tell you that there is a demonic entity in the background of the story, but it's kind of lame. It's just a very generic, shadowy, otherworldly, dark thing, and it has very little explanation and very little in the way of description. You don't really see it an awful lot. There's a secondary villain, a human character, who is way creepier than the actual big bad. So there's this guy called Wilson Miles, and I actually found him to be a very unsettling presence throughout this film. The trouble is, I don't actually understand what he's doing in this film or what his relevance to the plot is. I don't get what the entity's connection to Wilson is. I don't get the motivations of the entity or what it's doing in Shelby Oaks. I don't get what the goals are for this thing. I don't understand why a certain character commits suicide at one point. I don't understand the ending, really. I guess I could try and do some research to figure it out, but I just can't be bothered. But the ending is very low-key and abrupt, and it doesn't even take place in Shelby Oaks. Way too much of this film takes place outside of Shelby Oaks. But yeah, the ending, I think, will underwhelm a lot of people. It's just kind of, The mockumentary stuff at the beginning is quite good, but once you get into the main stretch of the movie, that's when the various bits of plot frustration and general mediocrity starts to kick in. The cast is just a little bit too bland, really, especially Mia and her husband. I did like the woman who plays Riley. I think maybe she should have had the main part, in all honesty. Keith David's in this. He's the guy who once played Childs in The Thing, and I saw him do a very, very funny part in Grey's Anatomy once upon a time. Very charismatic actor. I was quite excited when I saw his name on the credits at the beginning, but then it turns out he's only in the one scene. Duh. And Derek Mears is in this, but he's playing the entity. You won't even notice him. On the whole, it's quite disappointing, I've got to say. I expected a little bit better than this. This was a very frustrating and annoying film at times. It does have a few things about it that I could champion, and hopefully I have. But I certainly wouldn't say to you, go out and watch this film. It's free on Prime. No, I just wouldn't do that. Right, it's time to get to the bag of terror so I can show you what score I'm going to give Shelby Oaks. Here's the bag. see what we've got. We've got 1 and 2 Michael Myers carving knives out of 5. That puts this film into the category of just below average for me. So yeah, I would probably skip this one if you haven't seen it already. Right, we'll leave it there for today. I am going to get my notepad out as soon as I've finished filming and begin writing my first draft of Tent. No, I probably won't actually do that at all. So there you go. Right, we'll leave it there. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.